Are you ready to go deep? Welcome to the Whole Being Zone. Discussions on the day-to-day ways we strive to play big and be whole. Welcome to episode 138 of the Whole Being Zone. This is Wendy Reese Hartman, and today's episode's the theme is Beyond Diversity, and I've invited my guest Tim Mask on to help me talk about how we start looking forward into the future to see beyond gender, race, religions, to be able to create jobs that are beneficial for all. Tim was recently made president of MWB, an advertising agency in Jackson, Mississippi. He's been with the company for 19 years. And one of his proudest achievements there was championing the agency's Create for Good initiative, which reflects the agency's mission to attract clients that have a positive impact on health, the economy, and the quality of life. In addition to his agency responsibilities, Tim is the founder of the Fast Forward Mississippi initiative, a benefit organization focused on reversing Mississippi's brain drain, the outmigration of knowledge worker talent. In 2014, he co-founded one of Fast Forward Mississippi's best-known initiatives, Kids Code Mississippi, which is how I met Tim. And Tim has an amazing way of thinking, both creatively but visionary. And I'm excited to share this conversation with you. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Welcome, Tim. It's good to have you back. Thank you for rejoining me.
Very good to be back. Thank you for having me.
So just so listeners know that we did do an interview roughly 6 months ago, and I was really, really excited about everything that you were sharing, and I wanted to bring you back on because one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is diversity.
Yes.
And looking at the ever-growing chasm in our country between financial haves and have-nots.
Absolutely.
And looking at the education system and not always having a favorable light, almost never having a favorable light on it.
That's right.
And what is going to happen with the future of our country if we continue on this trajectory? And what you brought to the table in our conversation was a ray of sunshine for me. So I've been thinking about it a lot and following you kind of from the distance. And I wanted to bring you back to talk about what have you done over the past 6 months and some of the results, and really where is it going to go next? So let's start with, what have you done over the past 6 months?
Well, thank you for having me back again. Just so your viewers and your listeners know, my company is really involved with, it's kind of coalesced around 3 separate but related initiatives. One that we really focused on last time I was here was our computer science education advocacy initiative. That's you can search for that as Kids Code Mississippi. A second is a small pilot program that one of my partners has founded that's really, really taken off and done well. It's called SparkleMatic. I'll talk about that in a few moments, but it focuses on creative digital media skills, particularly for, I guess, at-risk youth. And then a third initiative, and this has really gained a lot of steam over the past few months here in the state of Mississippi, is a policy to correct the brain drain problem that we have. If it's okay, can I talk about that first?
You can start wherever you want to start.
So I don't like the term brain drain. I'm a marketing guy, so I want to put the best nomenclature on things possible. I've kind of shifted to speaking of it as talent, attention, and attraction. I always get those words mixed up. I also get tongue-tied. Talent, attraction, and retention.
Okay.
So the state of Mississippi is about 3 million or so people is our population. So we're a relatively small southeastern state in terms of population. We are, however, the only Sunbelt state that has lost population over the past decade. We are only one of two Sunbelt states that has lost population in any given year over the past decade. And if you look at the population that we're losing, it is some of our, what I'd call our best and brightest. It is some of our young people that have potential for high wage earning, for starting their own companies, that type of thing that could have a real impact on the state's per capita income. And the more we've looked at this issue, the more we've come to believe that raising the per capita income really is at the cornerstone of the answer to a lot of our societal and economic problems. We raise the per capita income, we'll be able to raise revenue collections, which will be able to put more into the state-sponsored programs. It also increases just the overall wealth and prosperity of our citizenry across all strata of the population. So that's really a key to fixing some of the economic issues that we've experienced in the state. So we look at trying to fix the per capita income, trying to raise per capita income, and it comes back to this issue with demography. As I said, we are a net exporter of youth with bachelor's degrees or better. We are actually a net importer of individuals with high school degrees or less. So that's got a kind of a dilutive effect on the population. So how can we fix this? We have a policy framework that is making its way into legislation this legislative session. If I get too boring here, just tell me.
No, I think this is amazing. Keep going.
So the idea is that we are trying to, as I said, retain a lot of the talent that we have in state, but also attract talent from elsewhere. Because I think the more diverse talent you can attract to an area, the stronger it's going to make the location. So the idea behind this policy is that if you are a person, and there's no age limit on this, if you are a person that is a recent graduate of an accredited institution of higher learning, and that could be a traditional 4-year college or master's program, doctorate program, or it could be a technical program like advanced manufacturing, things of that nature. So if you have a degree or certification from an accredited institution of higher learning, and it could be in Nashville, it could be in Bangkok, it could be anywhere in the world, you're eligible for this program. If you then subsequently establish yourself as a taxpayer in the state of Mississippi, which that means that you take a job in Mississippi, and your residence is here, so you're on the state income tax rolls, then you're eligible for this program. And the way the program works is at the conclusion of 5 years, you're eligible then for a refund, a rebate, a bonus payment. I like to call it a bonus payment of the amount of state income tax that you paid in over those 5 years.
Wow.
So that could be, and that's going to disproportionately affect higher wage earners as well. It's going to be worth more to engineers and healthcare professionals and computer scientists and that type of job. So when you're eligible for this rebate, this bonus payment, then if you take the bulk of that, we're looking at 75%, and you use that to purchase real estate in the state of Mississippi, either commercial real estate or residential real estate, then your bonus payment comes 100% tax-free. If you are an owner of an organized business, either an LLC, an LLP, some kind of limited liability entity, or you are a shareholder in an incorporated company that is closely held, that's like a small company,
right.
Then you're eligible for your rebate, your bonus payment 100% tax-free. If you don't meet any of those requirements, you still get the bonus payment. There'll be a one-time tax applied. We're probably looking at around 10%. So 90%. Worst case scenario, you get 90% of the state income tax that you paid over a 5-year period rebated back to you. And we feel like a lot of research has shown that after about 4 years, your chance of establishing more of a permanent residence in an area, it's like quadruples or something. It's a multiplier. So we feel like that 5-year period, these individuals will be more established. And then if there's an extra incentive to buy a home or buy commercial real estate, then that's kind of going to add to this population as well. And we're hoping that this can not only help retain a lot of our native talent, but also attract talent from across the country and really across the world. So it's not a silver bullet, but I think it is a policy piece that can help.
How will that affect the state in terms of having to make those payouts?
Sure, that's a great question. It won't affect the Treasury at all for 5 years.
Okay.
Because from the time that this program will be enacted, there's a 5-year period. The very first people in the program are not eligible for 5 years. So those taxes, that revenue goes collected the same as it always would. So you're never going to have 100% participation. So you're going to have people that, for whatever reason, do move, and if they move the entire amount, it's not prorated. You have to stay for 5 years. So the state would keep revenue from those individuals. What we would like to see would be that the dollars collected that are in this program be placed into an interest-bearing fund of some sort. And then any interest that accrues over that period, the state would also keep. And I don't believe that we're talking about a large number of people, at least at first. So I think that the collections, while very significant on an individual basis, may not be that significant at all on a state budgeting basis. Part of the legislative process that we go through, and really all legislators go through, is what's called scoring a bill. You get a fiscal note on the piece of legislation, and they look at, well, what's the negative impact to the Treasury over a period of time, and then what could we turn around and stand to gain after, as a result of the legislation. And I think that when we are looking at these potentially higher wage earning individuals, that it's going to come out to be a net positive. It may never be a negative. You can't say that for sure, but that's a very long-winded way of answering your question, to say I think it's going to be great for the state treasury.
Okay, perfect. All right, and so you were also talking about building from inside up, so helping to educating and provide skills for the current residents that are right now youth.
That's right.
Young adults. So tell us a little bit about those programs.
I'm very happy to report on those. Since we last talked, one of our initiatives, as I said, is Kids Code Mississippi, and that is acted as a curriculum builder, and we've held special events like hackathons. We're actually helping with a makers fair in one of our college towns. It's coming up early next month. But a lot of what that organization has done is really worked, again, to influence education policy, both at the high school level, as well as at the what I'd call the workforce level. We talked last time about this wonderful coding academy that was founded. If anybody is familiar with the University of Mississippi, it's in Oxford, a town in the northern part of the state, a small suburb or a small town just outside of Oxford called Water Valley. There was a coding academy founded there that took 11 students. I think 14 students. Their very first year, which was 2016, graduated in 2017, and they had a 90% job placement rate.
Wow.
They're now into their second class, which I believe is around 20 some odd students. We've also been part of a group that's headed by an organization called Innovate Mississippi that has done a great job securing funding and has founded 2 subsequent coding academies. that is taking their first class of students this year. One is in our capital city of Jackson. The second one, I should be able to remember where it is, and it's I can't write off. But there's two classes that are going on now, and these are work ready programs. It's a year long curriculum program, and these students, I hesitate to say kids, but they're not. Most of them aren't of legal drinking age yet, so they're still young, very young adults. But within a year of completing the program, they'll be eligible and pretty much have their pick of job placements that they would like within the state. Excuse me. From the policy standpoint, we do have a bill that has been introduced this legislative session that will allow computer science to count as a core math or science.
Wonderful.
About half the states in the United States have that.
Right.
Don't, so kind of right in the middle of the curve on that. But that is a very important component to kind of moving ahead with a more robust computer science program. And the computer science pilot that we kind of helped along with many other partners, help the State Department of Education get off the ground. It's called CS4MS. CS is the number 4MS. Has doubled in size in its second year, and I suspect next year that will be a statewide statewide computer science program. So that's really proud of what the Department of Education has done on that front. They've been very aggressive at pursuing and implementing that.
That's wonderful. And then you mentioned one of your partners has created a program called
SparkleMatic.
Okay, SparkleMatic.
Right. This is an amazing program. And if you look on Twitter, I believe the Twitter handle is @MWB SparkleMatic.
Okay.
And that will link you to the website and some other digital assets. We've got a few articles on our MWB.com on our blog about it. But my partner here in the firm's name is Mark Leffler, and he's really been instrumental at getting this program up and running. He's partnered with the Mississippi Library Commission, specifically the Jackson Library Commission, and the program is hosted from Medgar Evers Library. Medgar Evers is a civil rights hero that was assassinated here in Mississippi, and the library is named in his honor. And it is close to federally subsidized housing in a kind of economically depressed area of the city. And he runs his program out of this library, and it's mainly older high school kids, 9th grade and up, and they work on digital creative skills such as podcasting, movie making, digital illustrations. And it's really funny because you really want to see the whole purpose of these kinds of programs is so that these kids realize that they have these skills, and with a little guidance, you really see how they can really flourish. Right. And a subgroup of the SparkleMatic group has actually formed what's essentially their own production company.
Wow.
It's great. We've got a blog article up about that. Their production company is called Command Z Productions. And for your viewers that don't use Apple computers, Command Z is undo, and their motto is "You can always undo." So
I might have known that command a little too quickly there.
I saw you recognize it.
I was like, oh, yep, I know that one.
But that's a great attitude. That's a great attitude these kids have.
It is a great attitude.
Program teaches that you can't really make mistakes. And even if you do make mistakes, you can always Command Z them away. So take chances, get out there and try some things. And Command Z's first big production was a tribute film to Medgar Evers, and that was shown on this past year, 2017, was Mississippi's bicentennial celebration, and we in December we opened two really world-class museums in downtown Jackson, the capital. One is the Mississippi History Museum, and the other is the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. and it is one of, if not the finest, civil rights museum in the entire country. And there was a big celebration during the grand opening, and these kids' production companies' film was shown at one of those celebratory events. So that was a really big day for those guys. And the team is great. They have an illustrator that does some graphics on screen. They have one of the guys is focused on editing. One of the guys likes to shoot. One of the ladies likes to do the writing. So it's a full-fledged production company, and we've actually used them for some nonprofit clients that we worked on. They did there was a local church here that had a soup drive, and they did an actual commercial for the soup drive. So we're
wow.
That's a program that we hope it's really in its pilot stage right now. Mark Leffler, my partner, has done a fantastic, amazing job. They meet after hours once a week at the Medgar Evers Library there, and they have recently gotten into competitive robotics. They had their first competitive robotics competition, and it was great. They had SparkleMatic T-shirts printed, and it was it's just seeing that kind of thing and how these kids, these young adults, really take to these things with just the slightest bit of encouragement when they're given the opportunities. And it's, that's the kind of thing that's going to change these kids' lives. Probably. We hope so. Anyway, so that's,
I know you've been working with the universities. So is there any research that's showing positive net outcomes on this?
I haven't seen any yet. That kind of research usually lags about 3 to 4 years.
Gotcha.
Especially with your major research universities. I know some of the programs that we're involved with are being ran through the University of Southern Mississippi, okay, which is in Hattiesburg, south of the capital city of Jackson. And I know they are tracking some things, but as far as it being a mini longitudinal study, I don't think we'll really see any hard numbers on any of these projects for at least another year or two. But just knowing that the 90% of the graduates of the Basecamp Coding Academy are gainfully employed in computer science fields, and that the students in the other coding academies that are up and running are basically guaranteed computer science jobs as well. I think it's not hard to draw successful conclusions from what's been done so far.
So the reason I ask you to come back, and I'm putting this with a very specific theme for the week, is really looking beyond diversity. Mm-hmm. And I think we're at a place now where we're recognizing that the civil rights leaders of the 60s laid a great foundation, that we still have a lot of work to Absolutely. Do. And looking at everything that's come up in the past year, particularly in Silicon Valley with attitudes towards women, and thinking about, okay, what if we take a moment to look way far forward, not just in the immediate at what's happening, but let's look a generation or 2 generations ahead. In what ways can we start to move into a place that it's not about gender or race, it's about skills? And what can we start doing for our youth today to start building those skills? And what fascinates me the most is that what you're doing isn't your job. So take a second to tell everybody what you do for a living.
I'm president of what used to be an advertising agency. We actually recently rebranded my company. It is the company is MWB. That stands for three people's names that haven't been with us for a while. But if you hit mwb.com, you'll get a kind of an idea about what we do. We focus on creative solutions that have impact, and that doesn't mean that we just work for a lot of nonprofits either. There's a lot of very good for-profit companies that are making impact in our state and beyond. And that's not what we do exclusively. We do a lot of what you might say is legacy ad agency type work. But we really think of ourselves more as a creative idea, a creative impact company. I was recently named president this last year, so we'll see how that goes.
Congratulations!
Thank you, thank you very much. But you say that these initiatives are not my job or not our job, I mean, in a sense they're not, but in a sense they are, because there is an idea of, even beyond corporate social responsibility, which that can be a trendy buzz term that in and of itself may not mean anything, but just to step back from being totally altruistic, it is our job to help grow this economic ecosystem, because that's what my company thrives on. That's what a lot of the my partner companies that I work with and work for thrive on, and our growth and prosperity is directly tied to the well-being of our community, to the growth and prosperity of our state and our region. I mean, we have about 22 people on staff here, and those people need jobs, and those people need to grow. Their per capita income needs to grow just as everybody else's does. So it is. I mean, there is a I don't want to say it's selfish, but there is a vested interest, I guess, in for myself and my family and my company and companies that I work with and companies that I work for, that these things be successful. And you talk about going beyond short term. That really is looking medium to long term, because we want we want to see this vitality both on a personal level, but also on a really economic system level as well.
All I got to that is preach. I love it. I love it.
Amen. When you address, you brought up being a kind of post-racial and post-gender, and I know we've seems like we're about 40, 50, 60 years into talking about that. And about every decade we say we're post-racial and we're post-gender, and we haven't quite gotten there yet. I think we may have made a lot of strides in the past 24 months in a very short period of time. We'll see how that plays out and trickles down at more local levels. I think one thing that let's just say in I don't want to say rural areas, but in smaller communities, such as the state of Mississippi and other areas, one issue that we're going to have to figure out how to solve if these regions of the country are going to remain or become vibrant is venture capital. And it sounds like a really boring topic, and it may be. But that may very well be the next, assuming that some of these initiatives that we're working on now become actual policy. The next issue that we may look at, think around, is trying to solve the venture capital issue here. I have had, and it's young people, older people. I've had several acquaintances and friends and associates of mine that have had to leave this market, have had to leave this state, not because their ideas weren't implementable from here, but because strings that was tied to some of their venture capital funding necessitated they be elsewhere for whatever reason. And I think that that's something that that can actually be an opportunity if we could, in areas such as ours, tie VC funding to at first to maybe focus on minority-owned enterprises, but then expand beyond that so that we grow the available venture capital pool here and in places like this, because that's an issue, and that's a tough one to solve. And there's not really much from a policy, from a government standpoint, that you can do with that. So that's going to be a much heavier lift. So if your listeners or viewers have any ideas, please feel free to message me on Twitter.
And tag me too, because it's an interesting conversation that I want to continue to have, because I'm not ready to announce where yet, but we've made a decision to, my husband and I have made a decision to open our brewery in a southern state. And
congratulations.
thank you. And a big part of it was having a conversation with you. So that's pretty awesome. But what is happening is, as we're talking to people here in New York, in the New York City area, there's some real hesitation because there's a preconceived notion of values and beliefs that, while yes, there are people there that hold those values and beliefs,
Sure.
Not everybody does. And I think that is a real challenge that the South has right now, of being able to, for the people who do not agree with those more outspoken, very constrictive, limited mindsets, to say, this isn't who we are.
Right.
And who we really are is this. And this is exactly the kind of people and value system that is going to push forward, like what you're talking about, that it is all encompassing and it is interdependent and it is, all of us are in it together and we help each other grow, and not the very more, shall we say, visible viewpoint that's happening in the media and politics about the South. And I would love to continue this conversation on venture capitalists and looking at why people are pulling money and resources out of very good places, and particularly not only the Sun Belt, but the flyover states, that really, we don't have a choice to continue to ignore these places. It's not all San Francisco and Austin and New York City. There are great locations with great people, and in ways that if you were starting a business, these are the perfect places to start, because you're not, I mean, let's just start with the real estate is affordable.
Right.
So,
That's right.
you know, and the people are hungry for opportunities. So there are opportunities to gain employees that are going to be loyal because they want to stay there. They don't want to leave.
That's right.
I think we've got some great conversations ahead of us.
You mentioned real estate, cost of living.
Yeah.
Is another major business advantage. Most Sunbelt and flyover states have fairly good corporate tax environments for new businesses that are starting as well. And let me just say, it's fine if for people to hold a certain value system. I don't, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but I am glad that I feel like we're kind of getting out of the mentality of, if you don't like it, get out.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help. That doesn't help anyone. If you look back throughout history, you will find that the most prosperous, flourishing times were those times when cultures would come together. And I don't mean come together and hold hands. I mean just experience each other.
Right.
If you look at I guess the classic example would be the Renaissance was birthed by Western Europe's exposure to some of the Middle Eastern and Oriental cultures. Granted, happened on the back of the Crusades, which weren't great, but the fact that these two cultures come together and really benefit from the knowledge and the learning of each other for the betterment, really the betterment of civilization as a whole. So, on a micro level, I think it's great to have people around you that you may not agree with,
right,
that have a different point of view than you, because it doesn't do anybody any good to sit in an echo chamber.
right.
So that's, I think that I feel like that the Sunbelt states are kind of coming to realize that, and we're coming out of that shell a bit. And I don't want to pick on Sunbelt states. This happens all over the country. There's pockets of it's our way or the highway. But the old saying, if I agree with you 80% of the time, you're my friend, not my enemy. I think that the large majority of people in our country today agree with each other probably around 80% of the time, and we get stuck on that. We get stuck and really passionate about that 20%. And
Right.
we had this quote has always stuck with me. One of the things that my company helps with are our TEDx talks. We put on we didn't do one last year. We're going to do one this year. TEDx talks in the city of Jackson, TEDx Jackson. And at the, I believe it was in 2016, one of the speakers she was a youth. She was a high school, 10th, 11th grader maybe. And she had this profound statement that was a small part of her talk. She said, "You don't have to agree with someone to work well with them." It's like, she's 16 years old, but I thought that was absolutely amazing insight. And I give her credit and quote that in many situations.
I love it. Well, Tim, I am so grateful that you said yes to come back and talk. And I hope that we get to talk again, whether it's in 6 months or a year, to update everybody on where you're at and where these programs are. And if people want to find you, what's the best way?
They can probably Twitter at Tim Mask. You can also, if you hit mwb.com, that's my company's website. And my personal website is timmask.buzz. I had timmask.com and it got hacked, so shut that down.
Well, and I will tell you guys that I'm not a big Twitter person, but following Tim's Twitter feed is awesome. It's worth going on there for.
I wake up at about 6 in the morning and I'm my own newswire for about an hour there.
I love it. Thanks, you, Tim.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope it motivates you to take some action in your community to do something that matters. I'd love to hear your comments on the show. Infinite love and gratitude. Until next time, be whole.